Modern man is a masturbatory man. Modern man put himself to sleep with masturbation. Perhaps the biggest epidemic that we are facing is masturbation addiction. And no one really talks about it because it's very personal, very private, very shameful. Very guilty pleasure. That's the problem. Guilty pleasure. It cannot be together. This guilt and pleasure cannot be together. I see people talk about guilty pleasure all the time. And I'm like, why do you do that to yourself? Either feel guilt or pleasure. Why do you mix these two together? Because the moment you mix these two together, you become comfortable with whatever you're doing because you already accepted the guilt. To understand masturbation, we need to look at the structure of the society. Why masturbation happens? What is this masturbation? Why do we do it? We turn masturbation to coping mechanism. The way that the society works is so unjust that you need a coping mechanism. When you become a teenager, one of the best coping mechanisms for any man is to masturbate and get himself to a state of pleasure, get himself to the state of orgasm. And for once, it feels something meaningful. For once in this life, feels something so joyful that worth living. Because if you look at the society, if you go into the society, you will realize that there is nothing worth really living. Everything is pain, everything is anguish, stress, anxiety, the fear of missing out, the fear of not making it. Then you become a teenager, you realize you have a profound energy in you, you realize that there is something that is so powerful and give you so much drive to live. But slowly by and by, you don't use this energy to become, let's say, an athlete. You don't use this energy to become, let's say, master of a craft. Because that takes time. That does not come with instant gratification. But instead, there is something that we can do to ourselves, and it comes with instant gratification. It comes with orgasmic joy. So naturally, you tend to choose that one, the instant gratification, because competing in the world is not the easiest. It comes with lots of pressure. So to release this pressure, You need masturbation to release this pressure of life. You need to stimulate yourself enough to get to a point that you can find certain amount of meaning, certain amount of joy. No matter how futile and useless this activity is, you want that joy, you want that orgasm. You continue doing this process until you break it. Your brain doesn't give you enough joy and orgasm for just simply releasing, for just simply ejaculating. Now your brain wants novelty. Now your brain tells you this is not enough. You need to create more imagination. You need to create more fantasy to be able to maintain this stream. Otherwise, even ejaculation will not cut it. So what we do, we come across porn, we come across hypersexualized world, we continuously objectify females because we are in the state of masturbation. We have to objectify female because we don't have access to it. Therefore, in our mind, in our head, we start imagining things. We see women in the street, we instantly imagine things. We instantly find ourselves in bed with them. Why is this? Why we have to continuously objectify women? Why we cannot just be simply friends with them? Simply look at them as another human being. This again goes back to masturbation. The more you masturbate, the lonelier you become. The more you masturbate, everything becomes so hard in terms of communicating with the female energy. Why is this happening? These days, so many people talk about men and their isolation. I think men brought this to themselves by just masturbating a lot, watching porn continuously. They don't need the feel for going after a female. Because continuously releasing, continuously let go of this life force energy. This life force energy can turn you to someone that you can be very comfortable, very good with female energy, but no, you choose to completely become lonely. I say this because I know how it feels. Masturbation addiction plus porn addiction will lead you to loneliness. That's an addiction that it's best when you are alone. You cannot watch porn with others. You cannot masturbate with others. So you have to find yourself in a state of aloneness, in a state of safe comfort, to be able to let go. How many times you find yourself that you want to go home? You rather go home than hanging out? Because you know if you go home, everything is just there for you to enjoy yourself. And the more you go deeper in this state of masturbation, the lonelier you become, because also depression comes in. It just holds you down, hugs you. Internet is there to give you all sorts of stimulation, all sorts of fetishes and kinks. OnlyFans is there to even add more taste and spices to your lonely times. And then 10 years passes by, you look back, you realize you did nothing. You realize that you've been masturbating all your life. You realize that every single night you went to sleep watching porn. And then expect your brain to give you a good night of sleep. How is that even possible? Your brain just watched something that it does not make sense, at least in terms of activity. With the rise of AI, you will have access to all sorts of fetishes. All your wildest dreams becomes available to you. But do you really want to continue this process? Do you really want to continuously release your life force energy for instant gratification? I understand that this addiction is not the easiest addiction to quit, perhaps is one of the hardest addictions to quit, because unlike any other addiction, the means for it is always available to you. Either it's going to be yourself alone in a even public toilet, a stall, your phone is available, everything is there. Any other addiction you have to acquire the means for it. Drug addict, you gotta go buy the drug. Alcohol, you need to go buy the alcohol. When you put it away, it's easier for you to just quit it. Like when you want to quit smoking, the first thing you do is just throw away the cigarette, right? I know that you might go pick it up tomorrow, but in that moment that you want to quit smoking, you throw away the cigarette. You don't put it in your pocket and say, okay, I quitted the smoking. That's just not possible, because you know that if it's there, you will use it. You know that if it's there, it's there. Now, you cannot throw away your hands. You cannot throw away your genital. It's always there. You cannot throw away your phone, internet, porn. It's always there. No matter what you do, it's always there. Now you got to a state that you objectify every female energy, every female body. Now you have your phone that there are females there. Good or bad, they also figured out that sex sells. So they might be a carpenter and they just put a reel from carpentry, but their ass is a little bit more in the frame than the chair that they are working on. Why is that? Because it sells, because the views comes in. No one goes there for the chair. Everyone goes there for the vision, for the imagination. Now let's understand what is this masturbation. What is it? Masturbation in men is different than masturbation in women. Men are givers. It's an extrovert energy. It has to give something. Women, they are receivers. It's an introvert energy. They receive something. When a man masturbates, it releases its life force energy. When a woman masturbates, it takes the life force energy. So, woman's masturbation is not so dangerous unless it becomes obsession, unless it becomes another types of addiction, psychological. But in itself, it's not dangerous. But men's masturbation is highly dangerous and addictive. Why? Because you have access to it yourself when you become a teenager, and at the same time, there is a force that is forbidding you to do it. There is a force that it does not allow you to do it. And this two comes together and makes it a perfect match, because now you want to do it because it's yours. Now you want to do it because no one can not tell you not to do it. It's completely private. And perhaps it is dangerous because it gives you one of the strongest compounds that your brain can achieve, orgasmic experience. Then it's not so easy to get rid of it. Because it's not simply an addiction anymore. It's a coping mechanism. The moment you feel stressed, the moment you feel anxious, you want to masturbate. The moment you feel sad, the moment you feel depressed, you want to masturbate. Because that's the only substance that you have access to, and it gives you so much pleasure. When you masturbate, when you release your energy, you go into the state of calmness, relaxation. Now you don't really want to do something else. You just want to chill. You just want to be there and relax. Because this state in your life is pretty rare. By and by, you find yourself that you are masturbating a few times every single day. By and by, you realize that loneliness is just embracing you. By and by, you realize that no matter how hard you try, even if you go in a relationship, masturbation overpower the sexual activity. Then you masturbate while you are in a relationship. This is catastrophic. To a human being, this is catastrophic. If you are in a relationship and yet you masturbate, this means you will not ever have a long-term relationship. This means soon enough you become fed up with your partner. Soon enough you will find yourself that you want to be alone more and more. Because when you are with your partner, you cannot really masturbate. When you are with your partner, perhaps you feel shame and guilt to tell your partner that, look, I need this release at the same time that I need you. Perhaps then you seek loneliness. Perhaps you seek aloneness because you want to also have your own times alone. Not only that, you also find yourself that you lost taste in your partner. Perhaps you're a porn addict as well. You have always these stimulation that comes from the screen. Now your partner, after It loses its novelty. After it loses its mystery, you don't really want it anymore. Mystery. That's one thing that hooks every single one of us. Even you, when it comes to porn and imaginary things, you prefer to have a layer of clothes over the body because you know that your imagination works better than the body itself. The body itself doesn't arouse you anymore. The body itself doesn't have anything. It's the layers over the body that gives meaning to it because your imagination works better. I say all of this because I used to be to, to be an addict myself, porn addict, masturbation addict. Since I was 12 years old, I discovered pornography, I discovered masturbation. And I think for 15 years, I masturbated every single day, if not more than once every day. And perhaps I watched porn every single day. Until depression became too heavy that I could not really accept whatever is happening in my life. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't lonely or not social. I was always a social person, always friends. But at the same time, I had another life that it was totally different than my social life. You can easily relate to it. In private, I was a hardcore addict. In public, I was a great person. Let's say, like normal. Perhaps not great. But I was fun to be around. Although it was not so easy for me to find a girlfriend because, of course, I was a porn addict, a masturbation addict. When you masturbate a lot, when you watch porn a lot, then it makes it much harder for you to be able to communicate with female energy, communicate with woman. Your sexual desires change, your sexual desires completely gets distorted. And then perhaps you find a woman that you like, perhaps you get to a state of relationship, and soon you realize that things are not going well, at least in terms of sexual life. Things are not so working. And usually the problem is you. Usually you just don't find any attraction anymore. Then you fall back to your addiction, then you fall back your watching porn, masturbation, perhaps in private, perhaps in times that you don't want your partner to see. And slowly your relationship falls out. And then you have to wait for so long until you find another chance to meet a girl because these are just like accidental events because we are not going for it and it happens because we masturbate all the time. And if we don't masturbate, then we can easily go for it because it gives us possibility to go for it. A person who doesn't masturbate perhaps can find another relationship so fast because it doesn't need an accidental event. It needs that person's drive to go and find, let's say, a woman. Until the depression became so unbearing for me, and I just really thought about ending it. And when I talk about this depression, it has so many aspects to it. One aspect perhaps was the masturbation and porn addiction, but it wasn't a big deal for me. You need to realize this. It's not always a big deal. It's just there. It was never something that I wanted to just quit or get rid of. No, it was always there. I was fine with it. I was just having fun. I didn't necessarily need to have a relationship. I was totally fine with masturbation, totally fine with porn addiction, because I thought to myself, well, fuck it. This is going to be, and that's fine. But this adds up to the other aspects of your life. This adds up to the depression in other aspects of your life because you're using it as a coping mechanism, right? And then you get to a point that you get so fed up with life that you're like, what's the point of it? Like, why am I living this shit? Here is a very critical point. Here, either you make it or break it. A suicidal man is the prime man to change. A suicidal man is the best man to really actualize it himself. But most of us don't do that. Most of us break, don't make. Why? Because breaking is much easier than making. But if you really choose to make it, you can really create this shift in your life and make yourself fully actualized. And some people would ask, but how is it? How can I just like get rid of masturbation? How can I get rid of porn addiction? I tried many times. I tried all my best. I joined all the communities, anywhere I could, to be able to get support to get rid of this addiction. And it's not possible. I know that. I tried it many times myself, many times. And I failed. In masturbation, in porn, I failed many times. But then I realized, first thing first, this process of you wanting to get rid of it is enough for it to go away. It might take 10 years, it might take 20 years, it might take 30 years, but it will go away. No matter what. Either your hormones get less and it goes away, your libido becomes completely drained, it goes away. It's because you want it to go away. But if you don't want it to go away, this is the tricky part. If you don't want it to go away, if you don't actively try to quit it, no matter what, even if you're failing, but actively try to quit it. So if you fail, it's okay. Continue quitting it. Continue this process, because if you don't do it, then you get to a point that you cannot really easily control your brain when it comes to novelty, when it comes to fetishes and kinks, how you can get off. It's not so easy anymore. Your sexual relationships becomes completely distorted. You might end up becoming an absolute pervert because all this sex, all this porn addiction will get you to a point that you become perverted. There's no other way. Your brain makes you a perverted because you are so fixated on this sexual energy. You're so fixated on this process that your brain, to get off every time, needs something new. Watch yourself when you are looking for porn. What you looking for? You don't look for the normal porn, do you? I don't think so. Because you want something new, because you want something novel enough to be able to get you off. Otherwise, you might even not feel aroused. And that's what's happening in your sexual life as well. Your partner doesn't really make you aroused until you become so open to your partner. Then you start talking about your fetishes. Your perversion just gets bigger and bigger. Then you try all these new things with your partner. And most of the time, usually, women don't really want all these fetishes. Again, unless they are also psychologically conditioned and traumatized. But usually, women, they just want something simple, like sensual, because they want the intimacy. Perhaps this is for another topic, and all this sex life, perhaps we need to talk about it exclusively. But when you don't do anything about it, you become older. When you become older, now you need to try twice to make yourself aroused. And in the world that we are living, everything is just so hypersexualized, and everything looks in a way that a man should be active sexually for 90 years, 100 years, because it's possible. And that's unfortunate on its own. But let's not talk about it. One thing very important that I want to mention is your perversion becomes so big that you might find yourself in the gray area. That area that you don't want to go there because you know it's illegal, you know that it's dangerous, you know that it's not you, it's your mind that you take you there. You get to a gray area that you start hating yourself, you start really feeling shame and guilt. Why do you have these thoughts in your head? Why do you have all these nasty imagination? It's just because the normal doesn't cut it anymore. Why do you think we have all these pedophiles in the world now? Yeah, we always had pedophiles. But in this state of the world, perversion, it becomes so insanely big that a 50-year-old, 60-year-old have access to TikTok, and TikTok will just allow you to have all sort of range of sexual orientations and whatever you have in your head. Because now you're young. Now you might be young, you might also be old. But what I'm trying to say here is that if you're young, beware that if you do not actively try to quit this process, when you are old, you're going to be in big trouble. Because when you're young, it's fine. You're young. Your attraction is actually not at the same your age. You might be like 18 years old, 19 years old. You might be attracted to 30 years old woman. Because that's just has a better psychological effect on you. We don't want to get in there, that's another topic and everything else. But when you become older, we've been talking for more than half an hour now. But when you become older, now you have access to younger generation. Now you want younger generation because that's just like your psychology. The older you become, the less appealing you become. And now in your head, your imagination goes toward more younger people. So, to avoid perversion in the later stages in your life, you need to actively try to put this away. It doesn't matter how long will it take for you to get rid of it. What matters is you really actively try. I don't want to give you any method. I don't want to give you any way to quit it. Perhaps I will in the future. But that's not important. What's important is continue this process no matter how many times you fail. Be in the state of putting it away. Because if you take this out of your life and does not make it a coping mechanism, I promise you, you become so comfortable with yourself. You become so in tune with your outside world that you can achieve anything you want. The sun been in my eyes for so long now, I can't really see, but I feel like I want to talk a little bit more about this because I think I need to touch some points that is important for you to understand. After I personally quitted masturbation, crows agree. Slowly things became easier for me in terms of socializing with females after I actively tried not to put myself in the state of objectifying women. I could easily become friends with women. I could easily be there and not have any sexual thoughts. And I often found others that, what am I talking about? I often was asked, yeah, this is better. I often was asked, like, how is it possible that you are so comfortable with women? Why there is always woman around you? That might sound a little bit weird, huh? In this context. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I was always hanging out with women. That also sounded very weird. Oh. That doesn't matter. People always ask, like, what's the secret? How you can have these kind of communications so easily? And I often ask one question. Again, why I do use... I'm getting into my own head now. And that's not a good thing. But I asked one question. Do you masturbate? And the answer is always yes, right? And slowly I have to break it to that person because you don't also want to intrude their privacy. This is just like a gray area, right? You don't want to get like, don't fucking masturbate, dude. Like, what the fuck, right? That's the reason you cannot be comfortable with women. You have to always slowly break it. Then I'm like, the next question, you masturbate every day, right? And the answer is like, yes. And then I'm like, you masturbate watching porn, right? And the answer is like, of course, yes. And I just simply tell them that I don't do those things anymore. And that helps me to be me. That helps me to just be and not care about anything else. But for you, you care about a lot because you just continuously condition yourself to be with women while you want to masturbate, while you want to get sexually aroused. But if you just put that aside, then everything becomes easy. Everything becomes natural. Everything becomes less pressured because perhaps you will have a partner and your sexual activity will be enough for you to give you enough joy and enough orgasmic experience to not think about sex itself, to not think about ejaculation as a source of energy, source of orgasmic energy. Then your orgasmic energy comes from different sources, other sources. Your orgasmic energy comes from socializing. Your orgasmic energy comes from your partner. Simply looking at your partner and you feel orgasmically joyful. You don't even need to have porn, masturbation, or even sexual activity because the partner itself give all you need. Let's wrap it up, huh? Let's wrap it up. To wrap it up, I have to mention something very important. You need to realize we go back again with that guilty pleasure. You need to realize that you need to feel only pleasure. When it comes to porn, masturbation, pleasure has to be your first priority. Guilt has to go away. No guilt, no shame, no feeling of unworthiness. Oh, I just hate myself. That's what we do, right? Every ejaculation, post nut clarity, we just hate ourselves, our guts, everything about ourselves. Because we know that we want to quit this shit, but just because we can't, and after the reality hits, afterwards, you get to hate yourself. In the time that you want to do it, you don't hate yourself because you want that end result. And after the end result hit, now you're there. Absolutely bamboozled. Like, what? What just happened? For this doesn't even give me any joy anymore. Why do I do it? Why I can't stop it? You bring guilt, shame into your life, then you stop yourself from pleasuring. Then you stop yourself from pleasuring next time. Look, pleasure has to be there. You do this process only for pleasure. And if you do it right, by and by, you will realize that it's not worth it, the pleasure. If you do this right, you will realize that this activity that I am participating in is taking me away from life. This activity that I am indulging myself in, it's not allowing me to be myself. As simple as that. But if you bring guilt into it, you can't have this. When you bring guilt into it, then you're totally fine with it. I know it's a little bit paradoxical, but if you think a little bit about it, you will realize that it's the guilt part. Because the more you observe this process, the more you meditate on this process, you feel, wait a second, this doesn't really feels as good as before, because now it's not a taboo anymore. Now it's like something available to you. Now it's like, okay, you want to watch porn? Let's watch porn. Okay, you want to masturbate? Let's masturbate. Before it was like, oh, you want to watch porn? No, 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 no. You cannot do that. That's a bad thing. Oh, you want to masturbate? No, 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 no. You cannot do that. Because so many reasons. Then you wanted more. That's just simply how things work. Like, why do you think we are sexually so perverted in this society, in this world? Because of religion, of course. Takes everything for granted and give you all these taboos. Then you have to deal with these taboos for the rest of your life. There is nothing wrong with masturbation. There is nothing wrong with watching porn. Nothing. Absolutely nothing wrong. It's the process that is crippling you. The thing itself, that does not add anything to you or take anything from you. It's the process that is just taking you from yourself. And you can easily get back to yourself by observing this process, by observing, like, why am I doing this? What's the point of it? And if you observe this process more and more, awareness comes in. The more awareness comes in, the more you realize that this is completely useless. This is completely futile. It does not lead you anywhere. And if you have a little bit of brain, you will quit it simply. You just like put it away, like at least for a while, right? And that's enough. That's what we're talking about. If you quit it for a while, fine. Again, you fail, that's also fine. Just observe and move on. Observe and move on. This awareness will lead you to a point that you will just easily quit it. It might take 5 years, it doesn't matter. That's the problem. Everyone wants to quit something instantly. They got so used to instant gratification that they even want to quit the addiction with instant gratification. Cold turkey, right? Well, sometimes you can't go to cold turkey, just go hot turkey. Okie dokie. And don't worry about all this thing. If you hang around enough, I will help you to get rid of this state if you really want to, you know. If not, that's up to you. I don't really care. But I thought maybe I share this with you because also I had so many comments about this whole masturbation thing. And I didn't really want to talk about it publicly because, again, public talks don't get anywhere really. It's mostly private talks that get to somewhere. When you get so private, then you know that you have access to great, let's say, information and knowledge that just plays a role in your head. But when it's publicly available, you're like, yeah, it's publicly available. Who cares? It doesn't work or it's not effective or whatever. But when you pay for it or make it private, then you just appreciate it, perhaps. That's the problem with human beings, right? They have to always obtain something for themselves to be able to appreciate it. If it's just there, you can't appreciate it. If the flower is there, I can't really appreciate it. But if the flower is at my home on the table, I love it because I paid for it or I picked it and I put it there. Now it's mine. I will just enjoy it. But Anyways, if you are that one person that really want to get rid of this addiction, really want to get rid of this life consuming monster, this detox is needed. And I will be there to help you. You take care of yourself. See you soon. Bye.